Journey to the West, an audio drama series. Chapter 24. Part 2. We speak of the two Taoist youths eating renshen fruit in their room. Alas, the unexpected really did happen. That room of theirs was only one wall away from the kitchen. All their whispering on their side was instantly heard on the other. Bajie just then was preparing a meal in the kitchen when he overheard them talk about bringing a golden mallet and pellet tray. He kept the matter on his mind. Later, as they ate the fruit in their room, he heard the youths talk about how the Tang monk could not recognize the renshen fruit, and had eaten the fruit themselves instead. His mouth couldn't help but salivate as he said, "How could I find one to try for myself?" But his own body was rather clumsy and unable to reach the fruit, so he had to wait for Xingzhe to come around and plot with him. Standing before the stove, his mind was barely focused on lighting the fire. Instead, he kept sticking his head out from time to time to look around. Soon enough, Xingzhe arrived with the horse before tying it to a scholar tree and heading to the back. The fool waved frantically and said, "Come over here." Xingzhe turned around and came before the kitchen doors, asking, "Fool, what are you yelling about? I'm assuming there isn't enough food to eat. Let's feed the old monk first, then. We can beg for something to eat in a big household on the road ahead." Bajie said, "Come inside. It has nothing to do with the lack of food. There is a treasure in the Taoist temple. Are you aware of that?" Xingzhe asked, "What treasure?" Bajie laughed and said, "If I told you, you would not have seen it. If I show it to you, you would not recognize it." Xingzhe retorted, "You fool are trying to make fun of Elderson. 500 years ago, when Elderson was searching for the immortal way, I traveled to the edges of the world. What have I not seen?" Bajie asked, "Oh, big brother, have you ever seen the renshen fruit?" Xingzhe said in astonishment, "That I have really not seen, but I've often heard people talk about it. The renshen fruit is the grass pellet of reversion. If someone ate it, it will greatly lengthen their life. Where can you find it now?" Bajie answered, "They've got it right here." The youths took two for master to eat, but the old monk did not recognize it, calling them babies barely 3 days old, so he dare not eat them. Those youths were truly lazy and negligent. If master would not eat it, they should have offered them to us. Instead, they kept them from us and each gobbled one themselves in the neighboring room. I was so anxious my mouth was running watery. How can we find one to try for ourselves? I figure you're quite the agile type. How about you go inside their garden and sneak a couple out for a try?" Xingzhe said, "That's easy. If Elderson decides to do it, it will get done." He quickly left and headed out. Bajie grabbed him and said, "Oh, big brother, I heard them say in the other room about hitting them with some golden mallet. You've got to do a neat job and not let anyone know about it." Xingzhe said, I know. And so the great sage used the trick of invisibility and slipped into the Taoist room. The two Taoist youths finished their fruit and headed back to the hall to chat with Tang monk, so they were not around. Xingzhe looked in every direction for the golden mallet. What he saw was a long stick of red gold hanging on the window lattice. It was about 2 chi long and thick as a finger. On its lower end was a garlic-shaped knob, and on the upper end there was a tiny hole through which tied a thread made of green wool. He said to himself, "This must be the mallet they were referring to." He then took it off and left the room. Heading straight to the back before opening the 2 swinging doors, he looked up. It was a garden. What he saw was a place so gloriously built, flowers vied for beauty with the bright sun and bamboo with the blue skies. By the pavilion there were willows, and before a platform, pines. Red were the pomegranate and green the orchid. By the wells and by the steps, trees glow like brocade. With colors and with aroma, blossoms thrived. Every location was named after a flower, as endless patches of trees fill your sight. Cranes and deer were kept in houses, pools and fountains dotting the scene. No matter the season, something bloomed with vigor. For this was one immortal sight, the best bouquet of the West. Xingzhe had barely taken everything in before finding another set of doors. He opened them, and inside was a vegetable garden, which was planted with vegetables of all 4 seasons. You had everything ranging from spinach, celery, ginger, scallion, and garlic, to coriander, lettuce, eggplant, and turnips. 行者 laughed and said, "He's one self-sufficient Taoist." Walking past the vegetable garden, he found another door. He pushed it open. Whoa! What he saw was a tall tree at the center with lush green branches and thick shades. Its leaves resembled that of a banana plant, and its height reached straight up for almost 1,000 shi. Its roots measured about 7 or 8 zhang in circumference. 行者 leaned on the tree and looked up. On the south-pointing branch, a renshen fruit poked out. It really did look like a baby. A peduncle or stalk stemmed from its bottom. Look at this thing hanging from the tip of the branch, flinging its limbs and waving its head. When wind passed by, you could almost hear a voice. 行者 was beyond delighted, secretly praising, "A fine thing, a rarity indeed, a rarity indeed." Leaning on the tree, he slipped upward with a whoosh. That monkey, as it turned out, was the best at climbing trees to steal fruit. With a knock of the golden mallet, the fruit quickly dropped down, and so he jumped off to search for it. But it disappeared, without a sound. He went looking for it in the grass, but not a trace could be found. 行者 said, "Curious, curious. I assume it ran with its legs, but even if it could run, it could not possibly have jumped over the walls. I know, it must be the Tulare of Soil of this garden who won't allow Elderson to steal their fruit, so he snatched it away." And so he recited a spell and, with the right gesture, seized the Tulare of Soil of the garden over to his side. Bowing to 行者, the Tulare asked, "Great sage, what are your orders for this humble little deity?" 行者 said, "Don't you know that Elderson is one famous thief known across the realms? When I stole divine peaches, imperial wine, and magic pellets, no one would even dare ask me to share. How is it that today, when I am only stealing 1 fruit from them, you have already taken commission from me? The fruit grows on a tree. Even a bird flying by should get its fair share. Elderson is only taking 1. What is so harmful about that? How come I just barely knocked 1 off and you have already snatched it away?" The Tulare of Soil explained, "Great sage, is wrong to blame this humble deity. This treasure belongs to the earthly immortals. This humble deity is only a ghostly immortal. How would I dare take it? I am not even fortunate enough to smell it." 行者 asked, "If you didn't take it, why did it disappear after I knocked it off?" The Tulare of Soil explained, "The great sage seems to only know that this treasure extends one's longevity, but not its origins." 行者 asked, "What about its origins?" The Tulare of Soil answered, "This treasure takes 3,000 years to blossom, bears fruit 3,000 years later, and those fruit would take another 3,000 years to ripen. It takes a total of 10,000 years for there to be 30 pieces of fruit. Those who are fortunate enough to smell it live up to 360 years. If they ate one, they'll live to be 47,000 years. The only flaw is that it is vulnerable to the 5 faces." 行者 asked, "How is it vulnerable to the 5 faces?" The Tulare of Soil explained, "This fruit falls when touched by gold, withers when touched by wood, dissolves when touched by water, charred when touched by fire, and assimilates when touched by earth. When you knock it, you have to use a tool made with gold in order for it to come off. Once it drops, you have to collect it in a tray covered with silk handkerchiefs. If it touches a wooden utensil, it will wither and does nothing to extend your life even if you ate it. Porcelain must be used when you consume it. Eat it after you dissolve it in water. If it touches fire, then it will char and become useless. As for assimilating when touched by earth, the great sage knocked it onto the ground just now, so it immediately dug into the soil. This layer of earth is 47,000 years old. Even if you drill it with a steel drill, you would not be able to break it even a little bit. It is sturdier than raw iron by a large fraction. That's why when one eats the fruit, they will enjoy a long life. If you don't believe me, great sage, you could give this ground a few strikes. 行者 then quickly wielded his golden hooked rod and brought it down. With a loud bang, the rod came bouncing back up, but not the slightest of trace was found on the earth. 行者 exclaimed, Indeed, indeed, this rod of mine can hit a rock and smash it to pieces. Even if it bumps against raw iron, it would still leave a mark. How is it possible that no damage was left after that one hit? If that's the case, I really did wrong you. You can return now. The tutelary of soil thereby returned to his home temple. The great sage, though, had plans in mind. He climbed back on the tree, with one hand wielding the mallet, the other pulled up the front of his brocade shirt to make a ready pouch. After parting branches and leaves, he knocked off 3 fruit and collected them in the pouch. He then jumped off the tree and came straight back into the kitchen. 八戒 laughed and asked, Big brother, have you got it? 行者 said, Aren't these what you are looking for? Elder Sun will get it done once I set out to do it. This fruit should not be kept from Sha Monk. You can call him over. 八戒 then waved and said, Wu Jing, come over here. Sha Monk then dropped the luggage and ran into the kitchen, asking, Big brothers, what are you calling me for? 行者 opened his pouch and said, Brother, do you recognize what this is? Sha Monk saw them and said, This is renshen fruit. 行者 said, Impressive. Turns out you know what it is. Where have you eaten it before? Sha Monk explained, Your young brother never ate it. But in the days when I served as the great curtain-raising general, I escorted the imperial carriages to attend the feast of divine peaches. I once saw various immortals from beyond the seas present this fruit to the Queen Mother as a birthday gift. I did see them, but never tried one. Big brother, could you let me have a taste of it? 行者 said, That goes without saying. We brothers will each have one for ourselves. The 3 of them then each took a fruit to enjoy for themselves. 八戒 had a huge appetite to go along with his large mouth. Even when he was just eavesdropping on the youth's eating, the gluttony was already nagging him from the inside. When he finally saw the fruit, he grabbed it, opened up his mouth, and swallowed it in one gulp. Afterwards, he could only roll his eyes and shamelessly ask 行者 and Sha Monk, What are you two eating? Sha Monk answered, Renshen fruit. 八戒 asked, What does it taste like? 行者 said, Wu Jing, pay no attention to him. You ate it first. Why are you asking us about it? 八戒 said, Big brother, I ate it in a bit of a hurry. Unlike you two who are taking your time chewing and savoring its taste. I swallowed it without knowing if it even had a pit or not. Oh, big brother, whether it's for me or for the matter itself, the gluttonous bug is already moving. Do get another one so old Bo can eat it more carefully. 行者 said, Brother, how very insatiable you are. This thing is not like those made with rice or flour, which you can eat until you're full. They only end up with 30 fruit every 10,000 years. Eating just one is the result of great blessing and not to be taken lightly. Forget about it, will you? This is enough. He then leaned over and threw the golden mallet back into the Taoist room through a hole on the window, without paying further attention to 八戒. The fool only kept on muttering his grievances, not knowing that the 2 Taoist youths have come back into the room again to bring tea to the guests. What they could hear was 八戒 complaining. I didn't enjoy the renshen fruit to the fullest. It would be better if I can eat another one. Xing Feng heard this and grew suspicious, asking, Ming Yue, did you hear that long-snout monk talk about wanting another renshen fruit? Master instructed us before he left that we must beware the guests' underlings becoming rowdy. Could it be that he stole our treasure? Ming Yue turned around and said, Oh, big brother, this is terrible, absolutely terrible. Why is the golden mallet on the floor? Let's head to the garden and have a look. The pair hurriedly headed out and found the garden wide open. Xing Feng said, I was the one who shut the doors. Why is it open? They quickly made it through the garden and found the door to the vegetable fields also open. Hurrying into the renshen garden, they leaned against the tree and looked up to count. Back and forth, they counted only 22 fruit. Ming Yue asked, Can you make sense of the number? Xing Feng answered, I sure can. Tell me what you think. Ming Yue explained, We started with 30 fruit. When Master opened up the garden, we shared 2 fruit between all of us, so there were 28 left. Just now we collected 2 to give to the Tang monk, so there were 26 left. Now there are only 22, so we're missing 4 pieces of fruit, aren't we? No need to say more, no need to say more. That evil bunch must have stolen them. Let's go and curse out the Tang monk about it. The 2 left the garden doors and came straight to the hall. Pointing at the Tang monk, they filled their sentences with derogatory words like bawd, and dumped endless insults about how they were thieves with brains of a rat and how they smelled terrible. It was a load of angry rants. The Tang monk couldn't take it and said, "Immortal youths, what are you so mad about? Please calm down. If you have something to say, do take your time to tell me. Just don't spill such nonsense." Qing Feng retorted, "Are you deaf, or are we speaking in dialect? Why are you even asking? You stole the renshen fruit. Are you suggesting that we're not allowed to talk about it?" The Tang monk asked, "What does renshen fruit look like?" Ming Yue said, "We just brought them over for you to eat. It's those things you said that resemble children, don't you remember?" The Tang monk exclaimed, "Namo Amita! Whenever I see that thing, I become fear-stricken. Why would I even steal it for a treat? Even when I'm starving, I would not commit the act of a thief. Please do not blame me for the wrong reason." Qing Feng said, "You may not have eaten any, but those under you might have stolen it." San Zang said, "You're right. Please stop yelling and let me ask them about it. If they indeed stole it, I will have them pay you back." Ming Yue said, "Pay us back? Even if you have the money, where are you going to buy it back?" San Zang said, "So even if we have the money, we cannot buy it back. As the saying goes, kindness is worth 1,000 pieces of gold. I will have them apologize to you, and that will be the end of it. But we do not know if it's really them." Ming Yue said, "How could it not be them? They couldn't even come to an agreement and were still complaining about it." San Zang then called, "Disciples, all of you, please come over." Sha monk heard and said, "This is terrible. We've been exposed. The old master is calling us over, and the little Taoist boys will give us a bunch of insults. What else could it be other than what we just did?" Xingzhe said, "How embarrassing to death. This is only a matter of food and drink. If we confess, we'd be called petty thieves of the mouth. Just don't admit it." Dajie agreed. That's right. Let's just all cover it up." The 3 had no choice but leave the kitchen and walk into the hall. We do not know how they will deny what they did. Please wait until the next chapter.